All right. Do you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself? I
Sure.
imagine folks know who you are to some
All
extent.
right. Well, my name is Breea Clark. I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas, and I am the epitome of what college towns want when it comes to attracting talent. I moved here for law school in 2005 and never left. So I very much invested in my community, started my family and my career here, and clearly, again, given back. So I've been involved with Norman government since 2009 when I was appointed to my first board, which was the tree board, and being from Kansas, which is a giant prairie. That was quite the learning experience. But then I moved on to several other boards before running for council in 2016. I represented Ward 6. And then in 2019, I ran for mayor. And I am the youngest female mayor and the first millennial mayor to hold the seat. So here I am running for reelection, excited to keep our community moving forward despite the challenges we faced in 2020. Norman is very much on the right track, and I have the experience, knowledge, and network to keep us on that right track as we continue to address challenges and opportunities facing us. So thank you for the invitation. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, that was a very concise campaign speech. I appreciate that. So just so folks know, we did endorse in this race. We have endorsed Mayor Clark. Um, we are still sort of figuring out how that process will look, maybe going down the future, but board approved and had good discussions on it. Based on the folks that are in the race, and we have talked about this on the stream many times. There are two very far right candidates. There's a business owner, a local person who decided to throw their hat in the ring, and actually, I guess there's a fifth. I didn't even know didn't even know about the fifth one until somebody said something the other day. So good luck to them. But Mayor Clark's the incumbent, and has really made national news about policing and the uprising, or, after the George Floyd protests. Norman made national news for some of the work y'all did on that. Obviously, homelessness is a major issue that we talk about here in Oklahoma City a lot, but you all have been sort of on the front line of that. We didn't talk offline about this, but I think it's worth lifting up the COVID stuff now that we have a pretty exciting gubernatorial race ahead of us. Obviously, that was big news last year whenever, some places opened wide and some places wanted to fight the virus. You were very much a leader in the state as far as trying to focus on protecting health and safety of your constituents. So anyway, I feel like that's a good kind of overview of like the political topics we might get into. But this is a free ranging conversation, so we'll see where we get. But I kind of wanted to start with just a open ended question of like, what have been maybe of those, or feel free to throw in another one. What have been the biggest challenges of your first term?
Well, if I have to say living through unprecedented times or living through history one more time, I might lose it. 2019 was great. I got to celebrate our 25th anniversary with our oldest sister city in France. I speak enough French to be able to surprise everyone with a toast and a small speech. And then we came back and started watching the news of this virus moving in, and slowly but surely it creeped in. I managed to complete my girls empowerment event at City Hall on March 8th. But not long after that, I remember walking into a management meeting at City Hall, which I never attend those, with our, council manager form of government, and said it's time to take action. So on Friday the 13th, we were the first community in the state to declare a state of emergency. We beat the governor, which is not hard to do, unfortunately, with things that matter. But we weren't afraid to take action, and then we were the first council to put a date in place, and the last one to remove it. And I know that people were concerned about the local economy, as was I. It was unknown. We were trying to keep our community safe, but also moving forward. And I'm pleased to say that in retrospect, if you look at the overall case numbers and unfortunately death, you can see that Norman fared better per capita than any other large city in the state. And I am proud to report today that our last rating showed that we have a 1.5% unemployment rate and the highest sales tax revenue our city has ever seen. So it is possible to do the right thing and keep your economy going forward. And now we have millions of dollars from the federal government to do once in a lifetime generational investments in our community. And we're looking to not only address the immediate needs, but the long-term needs of our city. So obviously COVID was a big one. And it's kind of heavy to be able to say that decisions I made saved lives, but I did, and so did my council. I'm always very grateful for them, and I want to thank the Norman residents because I was able to take that bold action because of the emails and outreach that I was receiving, and I knew my community would have my back. Obviously, not everyone did. I had some other challenges in 2020, but that's okay. I know that sometimes the minority voices are often the loudest and the angriest, but I have been very, very happy with the positive response that we're getting with my reelection campaign. So also you mentioned budgeting issues that we also tackled in 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not afraid to be bold in Norman, and it's all challenges, but from that comes growth. And I have no regrets about any decisions we've made. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have about any of these fun topics.
Yeah, no, I think the COVID one, I mean, we've talked a ton on this program about, Oklahoma's COVID response, and obviously statewide our numbers have never been particularly great. And, depending on whose data you're looking at, we've ranged anywhere from number 1 to somewhere in the top 10 for, deaths per capita. And while Governor Stitt is going to give a speech Monday and talk about how great our economy is, and that's fine and dandy, it's like obvious based on what you just said, you can actually do both. You can save lives and have a productive economy. And I think that's like, it's going to be a challenge nationally in the conversation in 2022, explaining that. But I think the way you just framed it is very concise, way of how you message on COVID, that like you can have your cake and eat it too. Like we don't have to just sacrifice people to the virus wantonly. So I think that's a very concise way to put it. And I wish more politicians would talk like that, because I think it's important. And saving lives. I mean, just knowing so many people that have lost loved ones, lost parents, that really probably, I mean, almost certainly did not need to. It's really tough. And I appreciate you framing it that way, because I think if more people did, we would have saved a lot of lives in the United States of America, and certainly in Oklahoma. I mean, being where we are. But to sort of segue and talk about some of the other concerns, many folks, especially in our audience, and just obviously in many communities around our state, share concerns around policing. And Norman, made sort of national news and local news around, this concept of defunding the police. I think it's kind of important that people understand really what happened in Norman. I mean, I'm personally not too scared of the whole defund word, because I think like the way I see it in many conversations with activists is like it's maybe the police are doing things that they aren't best suited for, or that other things could be done better, so it's maybe reallocating. Anyway, I'd like to talk about what happened though in Norman specifically, because there was a big budget fight, and your guys' budget, similar to Oklahoma City's, happens like right after the largest protest in American history. So there was a lot of energy, there was a lot of interest in addressing this issue, and you guys tried to take some concrete steps. So I'll let you sort of give us your version of how that went down.
So one of the things I love most about my community is the active residents that we have. They are not afraid to hold you accountable. They're not afraid to show up at City Hall. And this is on both sides. And I think that's one of the things that makes Norman great. We're a funky college town, so you get all sorts of people getting engaged. And you're right, it was right after, national movement, the greatest reckoning our nation has ever seen in trying to deal with the systemic racism which we were founded on. And Norman was not immune to that, because we have such an active citizen, I think, base. And people will try and frame me as polarizing, but the issue is that the issues are polarizing, and sure, you have to make decisions on that. And so we had a packed City Hall, and we got lots of feedback, lots, and all of it was valid. And so what I have told people about policing in Norman, I've always had historically a good relationship with them and value what they do and been involved with their police activities league. I've gone on ride-alongs. So I've really tried to understand it. But what I learned that night was what we currently have in place was not working for everyone. And it's incumbent upon any elected official to challenge the status quo and think outside of the box if that's what's happening, especially on an important topic like policing. So, to be very clear, the Norman Police Department has received a higher budget every single year that I've been mayor. When people accuse us of defunding, it just makes them look very not educated on the subject. So we challenged our police department to think differently about the services that we provide. Because, like our teachers, we've asked our police to be everything to everyone in every situation. And as we've seen, that's just not appropriate. And even Norman has had some challenge. Nobody is immune to this. And so I was very proud that this past fall, our police department actually announced a restructuring, and they've created a brand new community services and outreach bureau that is designed to be more intentional in how we focus on crime and policing, but building relationships with residents, strengthening neighborhoods. And I think, honestly, that would not have happened but for the bold decisions that we made in June of 2020. So yes, it was difficult. Yes, there's still some, I think, raw and tough feelings about how it went down, but what came from it is worth it. And so I have shared that I am very excited to support fully funding that department because I believe in what it can do. And not only with helping residents, but also repair Norman PD's relationship with the group that was clearly not happy with what was going on in 2020. So I'm ready to give it a chance. And I want to commend the police department for listening and being willing to change.
Yeah. So, the challenge is, many of us on the progressive side see is like trying to, get services perhaps away from the police that they're not best suited for. I've told a story, and where I'm kind of going with this is it'll probably segue a little bit into the Unite Norman thing, because obviously the reaction, from the other side of that issue, of trying to, there's one side that wants to like maybe pull stuff away from the police that they're not good at, or put some constraints on police's use of force and stuff. The other side, I'm really not clear what they actually want. I mean, more police, more violent police. Anyway, it's very confusing to me. But where we're at now is trying to like figure out a path forward to do the things we need to do as communities. And so, what I wanted to touch on. Sorry, I'm kind of trying to look at a couple of things here. Is progressive folks really want to focus on how we respond to issues. And like one of the stories I've told many times is I sat down with the president of the FOP in Oklahoma City many years ago, before he became sort of a right-wing reactionary and is now running for state house. But he told me a horrible story about how like police had gone out to pick up a person with mental illness, taken them to St. Anthony's, ran through their insurance. St. Anthony's moved them out. Then the person got into another altercation with a citizen. And ultimately, kind of content warning here for folks, like it culminated in a police killing of a person because a struggle ensued. And, the way he told the story back then is that like, they shouldn't have been involved in this, like this was just a failure of the system. The police shouldn't have been there kind of doing that. Now I don't know what their thinking is, and, now it's just kind of the rah-rah thing and everyone's sort of dug in. But, as we think about what we can do differently, many of us kind of in the progressive space want to see, mental health response teams, or, people outside the police department and outside of law enforcement even, addressing some of these social challenges we have. And I don't know, one of the stories that's like Norman specific is, and that I remember is like several years ago, a man got kind of forced to leave Norman Hospital and ended up passing away. And the police did not look good in that exchange at all. Like it was a really difficult thing to even watch the body cam footage. But like, where can we go from here? Like what is sort of the next step to addressing these issues? And is there a non-police response? And thank you, Logan, for the Prime subscription, by the way. Anyway, so what are the responses for these sorts of folks that are concerned about these services residing with the police? What opportunities do you see?
That's what I was touching on when we've asked our police to be everything to everyone in every situation. And I'm very proud that we have our goal is to have 100% of our police department having gone through the crisis intervention training known as CIT. But we've still seen that not be the best approach to people in mental health crisis. And so we were looking to create a system to address that as a city. But then when we met with the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, we were honestly pleasantly surprised to see that the state is already moving on a nationwide program that creates a separate avenue to report people in mental health crisis without calling 911. And this number will be 988. And it should roll out this summer. And so we were told, so we kind of put ours on pause because we want to integrate with whatever the state is doing. But we were told that because we had set aside funds to tackle it, we would be able to take advantage of the opportunity and the changes faster than any other community. So that's been very exciting. We also have a new nonprofit in Norman called Caravans, C-A-R-E, Caravans, that we're hopefully going to do an RFP and work with some sort of service. It could be this one to help get people to services. We've seen that her services are great, but if you can't reach them, they're not helpful. And so I'm very proud that our bus system is still no fare. It's free to ride our buses. But then something like, it's kind of like the Kiwanis Cruiser, where we might provide the van, but then we partner with someone to actually execute and provide the services. So we've got a lot of different avenues that we're taking to approach it differently. But because the state is doing this big push that I think will be transformational for all of Oklahoma, we want to make sure that we're integrating with that successfully. But again, still continuing extra training for our police department. I think they're excited to see this, to allow our police department to focus on, actual crime as opposed to someone in mental health crisis, I think will be a nice change. So we're ready for it. We've shown with our budget, which is, you're a living document that lists your priorities and values, that we care about this. And we're not afraid to try something new and make bold decisions to make that happen. So I'm ready to work with the state. We're home to Griffin Memorial Hospital, one of the largest mental health hospitals in the state of Oklahoma. And to make sure that we can help as many people as possible. I think there's obviously a direct correlation with homelessness as well, if you want to segue into how we're tackling that.
Yes, I would, because they're obviously related. And and we talk about this too a lot, like from a political standpoint, like these issues are extraordinarily popular. I mean, I'm more familiar with Oklahoma City, and it's a big enough city that they're able to do polling on this stuff. But when you look at like Maps 4, which was our big sales tax funded initiative, the projects relating to homelessness, to mental health care, to diversion from incarceration, like these were like the most popular programs in the whole package. And I imagine Norman falls somewhere in the political desires of urban Oklahoma City in many ways. So yeah, I mean, homelessness would be a great segue. I mean, having had a family member who experienced some addiction, mental health issues, even in a place where I know many of the service providers, like it left a hell of a lot to be desired, to be honest. And, and Norman's a much smaller city, so it's like, maybe they don't even have some of the resources that Oklahoma City has. But it's tough, and in Oklahoma City, we have a mayor's race coming up too. One candidate is, I guess arrest everybody or criminalize homelessness, stuff like that. The current mayor is kind of quiet on it and doesn't really say much, but I'd like to hear somebody say something like, what are we going to do about this? And how do you see cities being able to address this?
Well, this is definitely a problem that every layer of government has to collaborate on to address. You know, cities, we build roads, we clean water. We're not really in like to the actual health aspect. You know, we provide parks and recreation and whatnot. But when you have a state government that is supposed to be providing mental health services and whatnot, then they clearly need to work together, because we can build affordable housing, but we're not really going to be in the business of providing mental health services like Griffin Memorial, a state agency. So we all have to work together, and also the federal government and even the county government, because Norman is the county seat. And so what we're looking to do is partner with these agencies. We have a unique opportunity with Griffin Memorial. Norman Regional is actually, we have this plan called Inspire Health. We're on the Porter campus. They're going to tear down almost all of it, and they plan to build a new 42-person mental health adult bed. So we're working on that. But then we're also planning to earmark over $5 million for affordable housing in Norman, because we have people with Section 8 vouchers with nowhere to go.
Yes.
And so one of the issues that I'm hearing from residents though is that the right approach? I've been calling it the field of dreams phenomenon. If you build it, they will come. And that's what residents are genuinely like scared about. And so then they tell us, well, you need to work on mental health and addiction. And that's where I'm like, all right, state, we're waiting for you. So it's multi-layered on that aspect. You know, I'm proud of what we've done as a council to help at least. I think at this point that we were treating the symptoms more than anything. Like when we created the warming shelter, I'm very proud that we did that. We've approved plans at Food and Shelter to build a food and resource center. And I like that because that also helps people with, you know, lower income, not just those that are struggling with housing. And so we're looking at single room occupancy and kind of actually what I love, renovating a building that's been vacant for a while. That would be perfect for something like that. So you get a double win on that. But then again, partnering with the county and the state for building different housing opportunities, possibly on Griffin. So all of that to say, we are working on it, and it's very complicated, as everyone knows. And you have to do this fine line of working with everyone, treating the symptoms while also treating the root cause. So that's been my response basically, is we're not running from it. We're not ignoring it. We are making sure that we stretch our federal dollars as far as we can while also collaborating with people. And we do know that we need to move the shelter from its current location simply because it's created a lot of tension between Main Street businesses and people who are struggling.
Yeah.
And I think our businesses acknowledge that they're people who are struggling, but they also see a real impact on what's happening on Main Street. And I get it. But we were obviously needing a place to have a shelter when we had to move it from our previous location, which was the old library, which then went under construction to become our new development center. So we're working on a better location that's closer to resources as well, and meets all of those needs. So no easy answers on this one, but again, we're not afraid of it, and we're doing the best job that we can to again stretch our dollars and build those partnerships and help as many people as we can for long term, not just for a short term fix.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like in some ways it's a very complicated issue, but also in other ways I think it's a lot more simple than people realize, because um, building housing is kind of always like a good option. I mean, you know, for people that don't have houses, like that's their big issue, is they need a place to live, and you know, shelter is, you know, one of the primary needs of being a human being. So, the build it and they will come thing is just so wild to me, because one, like, I mean, study after study after study says like these are your people, like, you know, if they're walking the streets of Norman, they have some connection to this community in some way in nearly all cases, but also just like I think about being, you know, we lead off with we're a progressive notch on the Bible Belt in like the setup for the show. It's like, you know, give me your tired, give me your poor, you know, like I don't know what providing houses to people that need them is like a terrible thing in some ways. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I appreciate you guys having put dollars to it. and I think it's often a quantifiable problem too, from like a policy standpoint. Like, you know how many people are on your like, it's possible to figure out how many people are on your streets and like what the demand is for these services. So it's like, if you have X number of people, like, you build X number of houses, and you should be able to theoretically get a lot of people housed. And yeah, I mean, Griffin obviously tying into the huge resource you have with that, it makes all the sense in the world. So yeah, no easy answers, but it's good to hear that there are some options, because Oklahoma City really struggles with this. I mean, we have kind of moved some resources out, and really just like all it does is kind of push the problem around. And that I will tell you, as somebody who lives in this area, like, that's not a great solution either. And I would much prefer people have houses than living in tents at the end of my neighborhood. Like, I think that's good use of tax dollars, if I'm just being honest about that. So yeah, good to hear that. Let me see here. So I did want to talk. There's a lot of tea in Norman right now, and people that watch these sorts of online political programs love to talk about the drama. I would really focus on policy, but we should talk about it a little bit. So at least one of your opponents, I guess, is the Unite Norman endorsed candidate. And I just want to pull up real quick. Sorry, my screen's not set up. Let me pull this up. So I just want to pull up real quick, because it's still live and alive on the internet. Sort of where Unite Norman came from. Sorry, I've got to reposition my tabs here. Apologize for that. So this is a GoFundMe page, and we talked a little bit about it offline, but I don't think people like realize how this kind of started. So after the budget drama of last year, and sorry, the screen is blocking you. There we go. Unite Norman got established in 2020, and I don't feel like this has been like a real great thing for Norman. I can't imagine this is where most Normanites, I hope that's the right term for Norman folks, but I can't imagine most Normanites are really like down for this, because, so there's like this, we've talked about it a ton on here, but like this coalition of kind of like developers, people who just really love the police doing things that many of us prefer they would not, and just sort of like reactionary, I don't know. I mean, the Unite Norman candidate today got in trouble by saying that publicly that a voter showed up and couldn't early vote, and the election board said that is patently false, like completely untrue. So, I mean, this is kind of how this operation's done. I mean, they screamed, in fact, they sued the city, right? Like, about the police budget, arguing that you defunded. And as we discussed earlier, that did not happen. Like, the police budget went up. It was, I guess, a trimming of the increase to go to some other programs. But I think, like, politically, like, what I'm showing is this GoFundMe, it raised $51,000. And the beneficiary of this is Pat McFerrin, who is a, Republican political consultant, done work all over the state, mostly fomenting these sorts of grievance-driven, divisive, unproductive efforts. How have you seen this? What is sort of your reaction now, nearly 2 years into the birth of this? Like, what do you think about all this?
Well, the name just kills me, first of all.
Yeah.
So I always love seeing residents get engaged. What bothers me the most about the whole Unite Norman thing is the massive amounts of misinformation. I mean, don't lie to people. If your cause is worthwhile, you shouldn't have to mislead and misinform to get support. And so they'll brag about all the signatures on the recall effort. But then I had phone call after phone call of, oh my gosh, my dad just called me. He's an elderly gentleman, and he was told that you were completely dismantling the police department. So of course he signed it. And then my other favorite, they went to bars on Campus Corner and told people I was closing the bars to get them. I mean, it was just bananas what was happening. And so yeah, I'm all for being held accountable and hold my feet to the fire, but don't lie to people.
Yeah.
That's, we've had enough of that. And then now the thing with the early voting, I wish I could say I was surprised. So it very much has divided our community, but I do think it is a big minority based on who I speak to. I mean, you'll even see, you mentioned there's two far right candidates, they're split. So they're splitting within Unite Norman right now. So, bless their hearts. I think their time in the sun is over and they need to move on. Because I've been on the phones a lot during these snow days, and I hear, as long as one of those Unite Norman people doesn't get elected, like they're not popular. So it's all right. I mean, they have as much right to be here as I do, but my biggest concern is the lying. Norman deserves better than that. And if you've got a good enough cause, you shouldn't have to lie to people to get them on board. And that's sadly what's been happening.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop up Reese Gorman's tweet about just the whole thing, so people see what we're referring to. Like, this happened 10 hours ago, which would have been like middle of the night. But anyway, their posting game is strong over there. But yeah, I mean, we do have like real challenges in our communities, and like I even if you don't like liberals or don't like people on the political left, I just can't understand how you're down for like electing like people who are just gonna like make crap up to get people to sign petitions. And of course, like for me, it's like it's Pat McFerrin. Like he's just like he's in this for the money. He raised 50. He's the beneficiary of the thing. Like I mean, he's just running a political campaign basically. I mean, it's just like it's so. It's just so bad. And it's hard to communicate this to the public because folks are busy and have lives and they're just not, in this all the time.
Like once you peel back the layers, it wasn't about masks. It wasn't about police. It was about getting this database of people to help them. I mean, it goes deep. It goes real deep about why it actually exists and who's behind it. So, I mean, the abuse of patriotism is beyond irritating to me, and this is a perfect example of that.
No, it really is. So anyway, I would agree the wheels are coming off that movement. Put in big quotes because I don't really believe that it is one, but I mean, I think that's why it was important for us to take a stand in this race, because we really we gotta stop this like wildness. And of course, Kish was also renowned for being on a plane ride to the January 6th. We're not sure if they were in the Capitol or not, but I think even showing up there is just sort of a kind of a little bit of a stain given what happened subsequently. So, and again, I just can't believe that this would be something that Norman is super jazzed about.
And then of all of the races to get involved in and all of the candidates to get behind, our governor decides to make history by getting involved in nonpartisan elections, by endorsing someone who attended the insurrection. And it's just like, oh, how sad for him. But I don't know. So it's a bad precedent to set, because I can only imagine that the nonpartisan race will become partisan as they try and do who can be the craziest to attract that attention to get that endorsement. And that is not what cities need, because we don't deal with partisan issues. So
it's water, it's fire, it's trash, it's police, it's development. I mean, and really too, I mean, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, so however much you want to get into it, but I'm a big follower of Oklahoma City development and pretty critical, honestly, of how some of our incentive dollars get spent. But like, again, at the base of Unite Norman is, a gentleman by the name of Sasan, who's a developer who seems maybe like he got crossways, with city development strategies. And, it's like, do we want developers? I mean, like, is the city for us, or is the city for, them to guide development. And I mean, there is a balance, I guess, somewhere in there, but creating something like Unite Norman because you're mad about development incentives just seems like, again, not something the public is super down with. Do you have thoughts about development? I mean, are there any big? I mean, I know I'm not as familiar with Norman development like bonds and TIFs and stuff like that, but I mean, are there? Have you learned anything over the last term about what you think on that sort of stuff?
Well, I would say the big TIF argument was with the arena and University North Park TIF, current TIF, and that was the ugliest thing I had seen in office before everything else that has happened since then. And I remember thinking, dear God, give us anything to focus on besides this. And then COVID happened. So it is all my fault. People who are blaming me, yes, I can confirm it's my fault. But seriously, I think Norman has a reputation of being anti-growth, but I also think that is a very outdated stereotype. I'm all for smart growth and making sure, we're working on center city form-based code. We had a presentation on pattern zoning. Our Main Street is wholly different now than it was when I moved here in 2005. And Norman is very unique because we've got the core Norman, which is actually West Norman. East Norman, like the middle of Norman isn't until 48th East. Like it's way out there because we go so far out east and we have Lake Thunderbird. So you can have this great rural dynamic while being an urban city, but you have to address both of those. Right. And most communities don't have that kind of challenge. So that's something that does make us unique. And so with tax increment finance districts, I'm not entirely opposed to them because being involved, I'm vice president of the Mayor's Council for the Oklahoma Municipal League. So I've got a great relationship with mayors all over the state, cities of all sizes. And I have seen what it's done in Oklahoma City. But then I've seen little cities go, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited. We just passed a TIF. And I'm like, oh my God, Norman is a completely different universe because we don't get that kind of positive response when you even say the word. So we need to do a better job of communicating the benefits. And the one that was such a hot button issue, we'd actually done other ones before that were successful that nobody talks about because they were smaller. And I think this one was just very poorly executed. Yeah. So I'm all for looking at tools that are, increase public-private partnerships that fill gaps. We definitely have some gaps in Norman, especially when it comes to, people my age. They'll leave. And then when I talk to people who've moved back to Norman, it's like, oh, well, we wanted to start our family. Mm-hmm. So while I'm glad that people come back, they're leaving in that key part of career development. And so we need to find that kind of missing piece to keep our recent graduates and young professionals here and also spending their money here. So those are things that I work on in terms of growth and development. Norman has so much potential. We just can't be afraid to look at things differently. And some of, I think, our older guard are really digging in on, well, this is how we've always done it. And so it takes people on all sides to open their hearts and minds and look at what's best for their community and move past bad experiences to hopefully invest in future better ones.
That is a well thought answer on that. I think the challenge I've seen with TIFs and what little I know about the one down there is trying to use these sort of non-voted on, not a lot of public input sometimes projects to do things that like the public really doesn't want. And like with the example I'll use is like maps again in Oklahoma City. It's like the arenas, the stadiums, the improvements to arenas, like those all often poll the absolute worst. But like you get it because people really want the sidewalks, the youth centers, the public interest stuff, which polls really high. And so then you take TIFs and try to do that stuff, and it's like you're just playing a really dangerous game with the electorate because like they don't actually want that stuff. And then when you look at how TIFs are financed and they pull money from other services, like.
Well, and that's something else I want to touch on. So we have Norman Forward, which is like our version of maps, and we've passed one. I'm hoping we can be as successful with a Norman Forward 4 someday, but it helped build a lot of different quality of life projects, everything from brand new libraries to sports facilities to neighborhood parks. So we're very proud of that. But it's a sales tax initiative because that's how we do things in this state.
Yes.
And I think another thing that made the TIF so complicated and frustrating to residents, because you mentioned it affects other services. We're the only state in the nation that ties cities to sales tax to support general funds, like basic services like police and fire, cleaning water, building roads. It's ridiculous. Every other state has figured out, well, wow, if we would like our cities to be successful and residents to get basic services, perhaps we should diversify their funding sources. And TIFs can pull from that. And then when cities say, oh, well, we're so broke, we're having to cut X, Y, and Z, they look at the TIF and go, really? Because you voluntarily signed up for, diverting sales tax revenue over here. That, I think it would be less contentious if we changed the Constitution to allow cities. I mean, you can even look back during the shutdowns. The cities that had Walmarts survived because people were still spending money.
Right.
And it's just sad. Oklahoma cities and the residents who live in those cities and towns deserve better because we're constantly making it more difficult for ourselves.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. And if you starve services too much, I mean, you get what you pay for, and we see that at a lot of our state level services. Yeah, I don't want to go too far down this because I could talk for hours about tax policy. I do enjoy that one. I am curious though. Have you seen the bill about the exempting grocery taxes?
I
So
have.
does it have a carve out for cities, or is it just like the way written right now, just gonna like pull all that money?
The one I looked at, which actually came from Minority Chair Virgin, was going to pull it out of the state part.
Okay.
But it's so wonky in how they do things. I'm like, please don't even touch it. Just please.
Yeah.
Trust me,
Yeah.
I don't want to charge taxes for groceries or feminine products. I know there's a
Right.
struggle going on with that. But then it's because of how we're set up, I have to go, okay, we can do that. And what am I going to cut over here?
Yeah.
And I don't know if residents realize it's just not that black and white, unfortunately, until we make that change at the state level. I mean, trust me, I'm 100% behind making basic things that we need to live tax-free. That's
Right.
that's obvious. But it'll.
Yeah, I think OK Policy has a pretty good compromise on that. There's a tax credit in law that they can expand for like very low income people. They would shield them from like basically all sales tax on, things they need to live. Probably wouldn't hurt cities too bad, or I mean the fiscal impact could be, averted in other ways. But yeah, just wholesale exempting groceries from sales tax has it has a potential to be just like devastating for city services, and yeah, really messy. Yeah, I'd be totally interested in the conversation about putting something on the ballot to change how cities get funded. But
And honestly, that's what it's going to have to be.
Yeah.
All of the initiatives that have truly improved the lives of Oklahomans haven't come from legislators. Let me repeat that one more time. Okay. The policy changes that have improved lives of Oklahomans haven't come from legislators. They've come from the people.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing legislators trying to make the citizen petition initiative process more difficult because they see that we can actually affect positive change in our state. And so I would love to see that be on the petition initiative to get citizens behind it and educate them to see that we've got to change it.
Yeah.
We have to. And that's, I think, it won't happen at the state level. It just won't.
Maybe, I mean, they could put it to a vote of the people. I mean, yeah, it's going to take a lot to get that done, because that's the other issue I have with TIFs, tax increment finance districts, is it really encourages cities to use that tool, and many of them aren't using it in a very smart or good or, in my opinion, progressive way. And so it just creates like a lot of unintended consequences by starving cities from like revenue that like you said, many other states let them get.
And I'll tell you, state government has its place, and obviously federal government does. But local government is the level that is the closest to the people. We do the work that they see every day Think about it. You get up in the morning, you wash your face and take a shower. Thanks, Norman, for the water you provided. You make your breakfast and you throw away your trash. Thanks, Norman, for picking that up. And then you get in your car and you drive on a road. Thanks, Norman. Like I can go on and
Yeah.
on. And we can't starve these services. We just can't.
Yeah.
And don't even get me started on preemption and local control and the hypocrisy of our state legislature. Because you want to see it down a rabbit hole, we'll
Yeah.
go there.
Yeah, well, you can't even like message on that. I mean, it's gotten so laughable, and like now in this session, we're talking about banning books and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's just like it's so wild. She sounds like she's in favor of direct democracy. Sorry, just reading a comment here. Yeah, I mean, probably to a point. Obviously, representative government has its place, but yeah, when it doesn't work or creates all sorts of other problems. Well, I mean, we're past the time we sort of pre-agreed to, so I don't want to keep you. Does anybody have any questions? It's been fairly quiet in the chat, but we've had a consistently decent number of viewers for our stuff, and we stream on Twitch and on Facebook. So I mean, the Facebook one will be sort of there if people want to go back and watch it or share it or spread the word to folks. Yeah, I don't see too many questions. People, I think, have been quietly taking it in. So do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to kind of close with?
I would just emphasize that there are many local elections on Tuesday, from Stillwater to Midwest City to Oklahoma City to Norman, and they matter. They matter so very much. I know that the state elections and the federal elections get all the fanfare and the political theater, but we're doing great work and we're fighting hard at the local level. We deserve your attention and your participation because these elections matter so very much. So please pay attention. Please make sure your friends and neighbors know what's going on and get educated. I want to commend the transcript. They've been doing great voter guides. NonDoc has one out. It's not that hard to find out what's going on, and we need you. We're better off when citizens engage. So keep your focus local and get out and vote on Tuesday.
A message near and dear to my heart. I love local politics, so it's really where I think you can get a lot of cool stuff done, especially in a state that's a little chaotic at times. But yeah, the only question I got fanfare here is ask Breea why she is so cool. So anyway, so I mean we'll close with that positive thing. So yeah, thank you so much for being on. Good luck on Tuesday. So yeah, elections next Tuesday, and I guess if you don't get 50%, there is a runoff, right?
April 5th.
Okay, April 5th will be the runoff, but we'll see. I mean, it's a chaotic mess out there. I think there was rumor of a poll was going to go out, but it's really hard to poll these smaller local races. So I don't know. If we see something, we'll spread the word. But,
I can't help but wonder how the snowstorm is impacting early voting.
Yeah.
It was not Monday. It's only Thursday, Friday, and
That's right.
Yeah. So
that is another complaint I have with the state is like, don't make it different early voting for state and municipal. That is so crazy. Like, why would you do that? So early voting was yesterday and today. It is very snowy out there. I will be honest. I drove into the office today. So, so Tuesday is going to be it. Or you could have voted absentee. You can still send in your ballot. If you send it any later than today, I would definitely probably run it down to the election board, just to be safe. But, and yeah, the deadline was Wednesday, I guess, to get your absentee. So yeah, Tuesday is going to be it. Should be nice next week.
Yeah.
Everything will be gone by then. So, but anyway, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it. I think the conversation was good. We're getting a thanks, Breea, and yeah.
Well, thanks for having me anytime, and I appreciate your support. And thanks for all that you do for this state.
No, thanks so much. So take care. Good luck campaigning, and we'll check in sometime in the future. So thanks. Bye. Thanks for watching our video. Please give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more content. If you want to engage with us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram.